speaking in HSR. For another team you can kind of want to consider, but this is not really recommended for now, it's gonna be the Acheron Overlord, because as of right now, aside from her, you could say Finon, but she's gonna be the most comfortable unit when it comes to your overall mob clearing. When it comes to your overworld, your SU, your DU, you can one-shot the mobs, and she is still, relatively speaking, decently strong enough to clear your content.
In Mr. Pokey's case, while he did put the team together primarily for open world exploration and utilizing Acheron's instant kill ability on normal targets, Remembrance Trailblazers should have been swapped for another Nihility character. Some players will assume this is a good Acheron team in general, and then find out that it underperforms in various combat situations.
So today, what I'd like to do is go through a few of these older characters, talk about what their intended role was, how they failed to stay relevant long term in their role, and then perhaps some potential ways to fix the mistakes that their kits have. There are quite a few that we could talk about that have all aged pretty differently, and I'll also have a couple hot takes included, so I guess stay tuned for that, and let's get started. So we can move on to the lightning category, and honestly, without even considering other options, there's really only one standout character that has had a massive fall from grace compared to her release, and that is Acheron. Like when she released, she raised the power ceiling so high that it left basically everything else in the dust behind her, and as such, the game was heavily scaled up to her level and then well beyond it to counteract that. The funny thing is that as that happened, she is now the one that's been completely left in the dust now for quite a variety of reasons. For one, her biggest issue is that she has some pretty rough restrictions. To get the full benefits out of her kit, her trace requires her to pair with 2 Nihility units on the team. But let's be honest here, there is not a whole lot of genuinely good Nihility units that pair specifically with her. Like, for the longest time, it was basically only Jiao Cho, and more recently we've had Cypher, but honestly, Harmony units in this game do so much that it is sometimes better to just run them instead of 2 Nihility units.
Now it's time for me to show the receipts on my end. These receipts cover 3.0 through 4.0. For clarity, this account is free to play. No money has been spent on it. There is currently over 1,000 login days on this account. Proof provided can be replicated, especially by Battle Pass buyers and or those who get top-ups in game. Honkai Star Rail is a team building game. Unfortunately, since Acheron's release, many players have chosen to not place Acheron in a proper team. The most common argument that will be brought up is a Harmony character will buff Acheron harder than having the standard 2 Nihility character setup with a sustain. I will provide an analogy. For an example, you are a swimmer. There is a current or wave going in a certain direction. Some players who see the value in Acheron having 2 Nihility characters paired with her will swim with the current or waves. Players who see Acheron having 2 Nihility characters as a con will instead naturally swim against the current or waves. They may reach their destination, although experiencing a lot more fatigue in comparison to those who swam with the waves or current. In context of the Sunday and Acheron team comp, I have the POV that this has never been a great pairing. Sunday, while being a good sword, was never meant to improve the performance of Acheron. In fact, if you notice, he had anti-synergy with each of the big 3 DPS of the 2.x era. Those 3 are Sam, Fei Xiao, and Acheron. Sam didn't need help with energy since Sam got the ultimate back with 2 skill usages back then. Fei Xiao and Acheron get nothing from the energy provided by Sunday's ultimate. For both characters, depending on the stat spread, would end up overcapping on crit rate from one of the buffs he provides. Sunday's purpose was to close the disparity gap performance between the big 3 DPSs of 2.x by elevating the performance of various 1.x and 2.x characters. Argenti, Yongli, and Jin Yuan are just a few examples. If some players felt the need to run an action advancer with Acheron, Bronya has always synced up perfectly well with her in sustainless scenarios. While yes, Bronya is SP negative, Acheron's most common supports are all SP positive, regardless if it's Ayla, Silverwolf, Jiaosho, or Cypher. There is a common sentiment in the vocal community that Acheron does not have flexible team building. This is false. Even day 1, Acheron had access to 2 different team comps, the standard debuff plus defense down variation, or a Dockeron variation. When there is a DOT based buff for one of the in-game modes, Dockeron may perform well. I will have receipts for this later on in the video. Another sentiment is Acheron has fallen off. This is also not true. What is true is her most ideal character pairings are skipped by a lot of players. Fact is, there are a good number of players that just don't like Nihility in general. For example, with Jiao Shou, he was skipped due to looking like an NPC according to numerous players online. Cypher was skipped for various reasons. The most common ones are finishing Remembrance flagship, saving for Fate Collab, saving for Finon, saving for Cyrene, and most recently saving for Elation Path. While Silverwolf is in a very good state due to the Nova Flare, we'll have to wait and see if there will be a version 4 Nihility character who syncs well with Acheron. If so, Silverwolf likely will be on the chopping block in the Acheron team. Even so, given history, I suspect a potential version for Nihility character would also be skipped a lot as well. For free-to-play players and small spenders, everything is an opportunity cost in Honkai Star Rail. When you invest into one thing, you are also giving up the opportunity to invest into something else. For those of you who play Acheron but neglected to invest into her team properly, she was not a priority for you on a personal level. This is fine. However, it is dishonest to provide the sentiment that Acheron isn't performing. Unfortunately, a lot of Acheron owners are playing Acheron as if she is E2 when she is only E0. Honkai Star Rail is a team building game. It is not a single character building game. The reason why Acheron with E2 gets so much mileage with Tribi specifically is due to the same team comp also having E2 Silverwolf. I suspect many players don't have E2 Silverwolf. For those focused on 0 cycle clears for Memory of Chaos, the game gives you the exact same Jades as another player clearing Memory of Chaos in 10 cycles. For those comparing cost, in general, newer team comps will have lower costs, partly due to the kits being better set up to deal with the newer content in a game. As a team comp ages, it will require vertical investment and or new character pairings to keep it relevant. For an outside example, in Honkai Impact 3rd, new characters at S rank and Red Lotus Abyss perform fine. However, as time goes by, the performance reaches the point where SS ends up being the standard. By then, MiHoYo will make it more accessible, whether it's via stamps, battle pass, some type of an event giving out the character, or Ascension Supply gacha. SS in Honkai Impact 3rd is the equivalent to E2 in Honkai Star Rail. Acheron at E0 requiring 2 Nihility characters is not a con. It's the reason why she is still relevant today. Acheron is not the typical run-of-the-mill cookie cutter crit DPS where you just slap Harmony characters on the team and call it a day. There's already Jinyuan, Aggie, and Ashvale that exist as traditional crit DPSs in the aspect of wanting Harmony characters from the lightning element. While yes, Ashvale likely will be a sub DPS universally in the future, certain players will run him as a main DPS until that time comes. I do not support the homogenization of DPS characters that have their own uniqueness. Addressing another elephant in the room would be Acheron's E2 in itself. While the E2 Acheron is game changing for some players, for players like myself, it doesn't serve much of an improvement. I would still run 2 Nihility characters with her regardless. In my case, instead of investing into E2 on Acheron, I simply got E1 on Cypher instead. While Acheron has very good AoE damage, her single target damage isn't the best. This is something Cypher covers very well, which the receipts showed that. If your Acheron team isn't performing well, the problem is with team building and or individual character building. Let me know in the comments if you need help. Finally, Acheron is the last character that needs to be talked about in context of Nova Flare. Acheron doesn't need to be buffed. Given how there are multiple videos made about how she ruined Honkai Star Rail during the version 2 era, from a power aspect, I can argue she is a version 3 DPS released during a version 2 era of the game. There are numerous other characters not touched yet who are more deserving of getting a kit improvement. Acheron should not even be in the conversation at all. Even in the scenario she were to receive some type of buff, I believe many will still fail to place her in a proper team. Assuming a player has Cypher's signature light cone, Cypher and Silverwolf defense debuffs lower an enemy's defense by about 81%. Resolution can lower the defense by another 16%. However, Tutorial Light Cone is Silverwolf's best in slot 4-star light cone. It's uncertain how much further vulnerability debuffs will be pushed. One thing I would like to see focused on more for future debuffs would be stronger weakened debuffing. As enemies hit harder and harder, I think this debuff will be more appreciated as time goes by. Even if the Nova Flare will receive can be something Acheron can make usage of, I personally doubt it will be more impactful than Danhong PT using Trend of the universal market. This gap may be even larger for players using E2 Silverwolf. In my opinion, if there were to be a Nihility sustain created at some point, said character may end up being a best in slot not only for Acheron but also T.O.T as well, depending on the execution of the kit. I will be keeping my eyes out on a potential version for Nihility character who may sync well with Acheron. If that ends up not being a reality, my pivot move would be to invest into E2 Silverwolf at some point if I am not able to obtain her via some event giving her out in the future. Afterward, I plan to eventually get E2 Cypher. At that point, I suspect my Acheron team would be at its limit for what I'd be willing to invest into it for the time being. When Honkai Star Rail was in its first year of release, I was optimistic there would be less misinformation in comparison to what I had experienced through reading online Genshin Impact conversations. At this point, I questioned to myself if the misinformation in Honkai Star Rail is just as bad as it is with Genshin Impact. If so, will every new high production gacha game go through the same cycle that becomes massively popular? It's just a thought. Let me know if I am wrong. If you had taken out the time to watch this or listen to this, thank you for your time. You be safe out there. Deuces.